Good morning. It is such a pleasure and a delight of mine to be joining you all here for the sixth, and that's a milestone. That's a huge milestone. So I want to acknowledge that. The sixth annual South Florida Expo, Fertility Expo. Well, I can share with you that I was thoroughly enjoying the presentation that Dr. Hammond brought just a few moments ago. The K Foundation was one of the organizations when I first came onto social media that I saw that I was thoroughly impressed by and encouraged by the information that they were sharing. So, Dr. Hammond, thank you so much for the work that you and your community are bringing. This is an area that most of like was mentioned, we are a South Florida Expo, and this is an area where we are, I think, a good mix of different cultures. Now, I'll tell you all, if you are off camera, that's good, but I am very interactive when it comes to presentations. So I'm going to be asking you all to engage in the chat box. And so the first thing I'm going to ask is, where's I'll start first. I'm originally from the Bahamas. So while some folks would be like, where you live? You live in Florida? Like where? Yeah, I's an island girl, as we would say. Okay. And I want to know, where is everybody from? Like, where is Jamaica in the house? I know Jamaica's everywhere, right? So let's hear from Jamaica. Where's Trinidad? Is Trinidad here? Is Haiti here? I see Dominica is here. Bermuda is here. Okay, all right. We also have, who else? I miss anybody? Do we have Puerto Rico? Anybody else from the Bahamas? Any of my Bahamian people out there, as we would say? Well, wherever you are from, I want to welcome you to the information that I'm going to be sharing about, which, regardless of the island that we are representing or where we're from, we share a lot of commonalities as it relates to some of the challenges we face. And as was shared earlier, the statistics tell us, according to the World Health Organization, when it comes to infertility, we're talking about 1 in 6, 1 in 6. So today, what I'm going to be diving a little bit into, and some of it may be a little repetitive, some things you may have heard before, some may be new, but some of the myths, all right? I'm going to dive into at least 3 of the myths that I think are commonplace within our Caribbean community. And then I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we face. I'm going to identify several challenges, and then I'm going to follow that up with several strategies that I recommend. And the reason why I'm doing that, when it comes to the strategies, I'm a faith-based person. I am the founder of Fertility Empowerment International, which is a faith-based nonprofit, and it's fairly new. I am, again, so encouraged and inspired by the work by many of the individuals here. But this organization, we focus on faith-based with a mission to build hope, break the silence, which is so prevalent, especially in the Caribbean community, and also to bring empowerment to that community. Most recently, my organization hosted a global fertility empowerment conference in the Bahamas earlier this month, and that brought individuals from several places and was inaugural. It's groundbreaking, right? There's always more people you would want in the room, but I can share with you those that were in the room were definitely impacted in a tremendous way. And I look forward to seeing more of you join us next year when we host this particular function. So let's dive into talking about some of the myths that we see in the Caribbean community, right? And I can share with you, coming from the Bahamas, growing up, when it came to infertility, it's a conversation that I never, ever heard about. Like, when I say never, is there anybody here who can repeat never? Before they actually encounter it, like, did you hear anybody in your family or in your church or in your civic organizations in your community? I'm seeing no, no. Literally, when I say never, I mean zero, zip, nada, not even once. And for me personally, even after being diagnosed, even after having the challenges that I had, even after having my kids and I'm seeing their silence, no, never, no. Can I share with you that prior to actually even coming out with my book, right? Came out with a book just about 2 years ago. Prior to coming out with this book, I could not even say the word infertility. Like, it never even came from my lips. And it was even after publishing my book that I was on a stage where I said I was diagnosed with infertility. And even in that moment, it's like a reckoning moment for me where I actually publicly used that word as something that I was diagnosed with, that it, in that moment, empowered me even further. And so while it is something that we never talk about and in our communities is so silent, one of the things I think, and it was mentioned earlier, many think that it's an issue that's just a woman's problem, right? That's one of the first myths that I want to dive into, where that's a woman issue. And we know in the Caribbean community, a lot of our men are macho and like, it can't be my boys that are creating any trouble for me, right? And when it comes to that conversation, again, we all here said never, but it's even when it comes to men going to the doctor in the Caribbean community, that's like what I gotta go to the doctor for. Like, what you think wrong with me, right? And it's a myth when the perception is that it's solely a woman's problem. And contrary to this myth, approximately 40% of infertility cases are attributed to male factors, 40% to female, and 20% is a combination, according to the American Society of Reproductive Medicine. So understanding that fertility issues can affect both partners, it's crucial for us in our communities to have open communications and mutual support. Now, let's talk about myth number 2. Fertility issues, especially for us Christians, right? Those of us who are faith-based, this gotta be a punishment from the Lord for something that we did, right? And I'll share with you, even after coming to terms with the fact that I needed assistance to have fertility treatment, that was something I felt like I was maybe, am I, how to say, putting God's hand ahead of what I'm needing to happen? Like was said earlier, like, why can't we just wait on God? God can do anything. I can share with you the first time the doctor told me that I would need to consider IVF. Here's my posture, and I talk about this in the book. The devil is a liar. He can't be talking about me. There's no way I'm one of those people that's going to need IVF. Like, who do you think this is? And for a very long time, I struggled with that. But can I share with you that just how we normalize medical care and medical treatment for cancer, where there's chemotherapy, for broken limbs, where people go to the orthopedic doctor, where we have other health conditions, that we need to also normalize the conversation around fertility treatment being an option for those that are struggling to conceive their families. And in doing so, we don't go around saying somebody that may have been diagnosed with cancer being punished by God, or somebody that may have had a brain injury that they are being punished by God. In like manner, it's not appropriate for us really to take on that perception, that myth, that the ability, the inability, or the challenges that are involved regarding having a child is punishment from God. Because I can tell you, the God who I serve, he's all loving. But because of the perceptions and the conversations we have grown up around, especially in our communities, that perception, I can see why it's so prevalent. But it's a myth. It's a myth. And I'd like to challenge those that may have that perception as viewing infertility as a punishment to reframe it, as it could be a test of faith. And it's also an opportunity for personal growth and resilience. But it's not a punishment. It's not a punishment. When it comes to myth number 3, natural remedies can cure all fertility problems. Anybody here grew up on taking something where they went in the back of their yard, and every time they were sick, I'm like, okay, go and pull a piece of that branch and let's drink that. Anybody here grew up doing that? Anybody? What's some of the, and I need you to put in the chat, what are some things that you took when you were sick as a kid, or your grandparents made you say, we need to go and get some of that? I see herbs. I see let's make a tea. Anybody else? Cersei. Anybody grew up on Cersei? Cersei. How I know that was going to be the first one. Like, you got a cough? Girl, go get some Cersei. What? You sniffling? Get some Cersei. Cod liver oil. Listen. So I'll put a plug in because my mom is visiting from the Bahamas, and the kids, have little sniffles. I mean, they go to school in a petri dish. And when last did you give the kids any cod liver oil, baby? And I'm like, Mom, the cod liver oil is in my cupboard, and we'll make sure castor oil I hear is here. All of these natural remedies. And can I tell you, they do have a place. They have a place, but they are not a cure-all. They don't cure all fertility problems. And so that's a myth. While lifestyle changes and alternative therapies may improve fertility outcomes, trust me, they do. There are many that do. For some individuals, it's essential to acknowledge that the success rate of natural remedies vary. They vary. And in some cases, there are underlying medical conditions of severe fertility issues where medical intervention is necessary. And so I wanted to make sure we got that myth on the record and tell, Auntie Karen, Auntie Karen, yes, I know the aloe, does help to take care of my skin, but this ain't that issue. All right. Now let's address the challenges we must overcome as community. When it comes to the first challenge, and I'll confess, in fact, that's why my book is titled The Secrets, The Secrets of Faith in Fertility. Stigma and silence. Stigma and silence. Studies indicate that nearly 6% of individuals experiencing infertility feel ashamed and embarrassed. And that's from the Journal of Human Reproductive Sciences. Breaking the silence and fostering open and supportive conversations about fertility within our community can help. It does help to combat the stigma and create a safe place and a space and place for individuals to seek guidance and support. For me, it's sometimes jarring when I reflect on it. But even after having my kids, nobody knew that infertility was a part of my life story. To this day, my mother, I think, holds it a little bit against me that I was not as open with her about my infertility challenges. I'll share with you, after my first pregnancy loss, and the doctors recommended that I have myomectomy surgery. And my mom, anything I'm doing, anything medical related, she's always, like, what do you need? When do I need to be there? And she didn't know that I had IVF with my first pregnancy. She didn't know the challenges that I had before. And my doctor, who was going to be performing the surgery, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, you know what? I may be under, and he may say something that may have her asking, like, what's that? And I started to struggle with, okay, well, I don't want her to find out like that. Like, and then, what if something was to happen while I'm in surgery? Like, and then she's finding out things after the fact, right? So it was literally just before I was going into surgery. I said, and I did it very vague, still not clear at all. But I was like, "Oh, mommy, you know, we had to get some help to have the last kids, So this is a doctor who's going to be doing the surgery, to address the fibroids, period." And I don't think it really sunk in, but I like planted this little seed. So if it came up, it wouldn't be like a total blind side. But it wasn't until I wrote my book when I literally broke my silence. And my mom, a cousin of mine, a close work colleague, and I think one other individual, I knew that I needed to be intentional about speaking with them before, and my best friend, that I needed to be intentional about breaking my silence with them just before my book came out. And literally, with some of them, it was the weekend before I posted it on social media. In our communities, secrecy and shame truly keeps us in bondage. And it's important for us to overcome that particular challenge. Now, when it comes to access to healthcare, I think it was talked about a little bit earlier. This is a challenge for our community. You see, disparities in access to fertility care exist worldwide, with approximately 50% of couples in low-income countries unable to access basic fertility treatments. And that's according to the World Bank. Addressing disparities in access to fertility services and advocating for affordable, culturally sensitive care can help ensure that all individuals have equitable access to the support they need. Right now in the Caribbean, there are 2 countries that I'm aware of that provides full fertility treatment. One that's prominently known, Barbados Fertility Clinic, and then in Trinidad, there's also a fertility clinic, both that does everything leading up to IVF. However, even still, there are many individuals in those countries and from those countries who the access, because of cost, makes it prohibitive. And that's a challenge. When it comes to cultural expectations, can I tell you that's a challenge too? You see, cultural norms and societal pressures regarding family planning can significantly impact individuals and couples facing fertility challenges. Is there anybody here who has been told, hey, y'all don't take too long? You know what happens when you turn 30? Don't let the eggs dry up. You don't think that husband wants a child? Your grandparents want socks foot? Any other expressions anybody else uses? Any other expressions like you've heard in your culture when it comes to family planning? Like, or only take 1 year to have fun and then, make sure bring that baby to the family. Every time I would visit my relatives, the expression would be, when y'all gonna bring something in the hand basket? Like I would hear that almost every trip. When are you gonna bring something in the hand basket? And so the expectations around family planning can be very intense in our culture. So I want to give you guys now some strategies. And being one that leads a faith-based nonprofit, I want to share that we turn our faith to our faith for guidance and hope. And that's what the strategies I'm going to share are going to be based on. This may sound cliche, And trust me, even when I heard it initially, I sometimes used to balk at it because it's not usually something you may want to hear. But having been married 1, 2, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 9 years, 10, 11 years before having our first live birth and being able to hold our miracle. There's just something about God's timing. You see in Ecclesiastes 3, verse 11, it reminds us that God makes everything beautiful in his time. And embracing that truth truly has provided comfort and reassurance for many of the individuals that I've been coaching when they're able to see and or read what my waiting periods look like. Strategy number 2, leaning on community for support. And we have so many amazing communities. Several that Dr. Hammond mentioned just a while ago, the Kate Foundation, Waiting Wombs, Filling Empty Wombs by Sandra and her team, and others that were listed earlier. You see, Proverbs 27, verse 17 tells us that iron sharpens iron. And it highlights the importance of community support and fellowship during challenging times. So seeking guidance and encouragement and prayer from fellow believers can provide strength and solidarity on the fertility journey. Now, when it comes to strategy number 3, talking about embracing resilience and surrendering. So in Philippians 4, verse 6 through 7, it encourages us to present our request to God with thanksgiving. You know, on this journey, I remember clearly when I was given spiritual instruction that I almost had to question, is that God? Because he can't be talking to me about this. It was after my second pregnancy loss. And that was a season where I literally felt forgotten by God. And that's a chapter in my book as well. I talk about, like, God, did you forget me? Like, did you forget me? Here it is. I consider myself to be doing all the right things, taking the path that, you know, is supposed to be taken, turns going to school, then getting married, and then now, like, the family, like, hello. Like, isn't that the sequence we've been taught and trained all these years that we're supposed to take in? Nothing's happened. But it took complete surrendering to this crazy assignment of faith to go and buy baby blankets that added to the resiliency on my journey. And it helped to build the peace in guarding my heart and my mind in knowing that, as he had promised me, someday I would be able to fill that blanket. And so embrace resilience and surrender. Embrace resilience and surrender in giving your requests. And he has more than 1 million ways to fill that request, of which we don't even know the first one. Sometimes that surrender may mean taking a break. Dr. Hammond spoke to that a few moments ago. And I'll tell you, sometimes when I coach clients and I make that recommendation, depending on what their journey is like, it's one of the most uncomfortable things to consider doing. And I know, because when my husband was like, okay, we're going to take a break now, how old I am? Like, take a break where? The clock is ticking, bro. And he's like, we're coming up on our 10th wedding anniversary. We need to take a break. Let's go somewhere. Let's just enjoy, let's not talk about baby for a while. Let's take a break. And can I tell you, as painful as it was to acknowledge that he was right, first of all, and then to also go ahead and just release and surrender in that season, it was absolutely one of the best things that we could have done for our marriage and my reproductive health. We've done the surgery with the fibroids, endometritis, like scar tissue, like all the things, like we needed a break and we took it. So embrace resilience and surrender is the last strategy that I would like to leave with you. And so with courage and compassion and unwavering faith, it is my hope and my prayer that we are able to find faith and strength in unity and hope in the promises of tomorrow within our Caribbean community. Blessings to each one of you. If you'd like more information on the nonprofit Fertility Empowerment International, you're welcome to follow us on social media at Fertility Empower, or you can also find more information through my Facebook and Instagram pages at Dr. Tazz, and that's doctor spelled all the way out. Thank you.